Howdy chaps, and we're back for another day on the Landau. Just been tweaking this. I made another die of the other side of the Landau so I could make this. Now, it's not obviously the end result because I was mainly interested in just this shape here so that it fits in snugly. And obviously I'm going to rework this a bit better once it's actually attached to the car. And I'll show you one little neat thing. I can't believe I did that. I was trying to just tweak it a bit more, and I didn't use heat that time. I managed to stab a hole straight through. I was like, damn it. But you can't win everything. This bit I thought was quite neat because I didn't actually show it in my last video, but so this is a genuine coupe taillight panel that I obviously replaced on another car, but I didn't throw it away because I thought it may come in handy. Yeah, there we go. A little bit of fits pretty good in my opinion. It's interesting the way they do these because they get really quite tight and then they get to about here, so there's a gap here with no spot welds, but that's why they braze the corners. So if I was to, yeah, with a little tweaking, yeah, something like that. It fits. It's actually quite nice actually. Works better when you have vice grips not holding it with your hand. So I know that fits a genuine panel, so I know it's about the right shape. I know the top is the same width here and here. The problem I'm going to have is I have a suspicion that this isn't right, which is not at all surprising. So I'm going to have to try and wing it. And yes, I did actually measure this yesterday, and that's actually too narrow. So put it like that. Yeah, so that's going to be interesting. So what I did is I copied this shape, which I know is seems to be fairly correct. So I copied this, so tight up here, gets tight here, actually has a fold straight through. So I've got to try and bend that other piece so it's got a curve in it at the end. But I'll have to, considering it's only about that much, I'm going to have to rework a little bit at the bottom for the other side. But at least it'll give me this shape and it'll look fairly okay. See, that's same width here, and then it's crushed, and then it gets big again, so it's not a lot I can do with that. Somebody's run a weld through the ends of this. And interesting is, I noticed when I was playing with this the other day, that whoever was working on this last got a set, you know, like a big wide chisel, and they set out the style line right to here. I'm like, why? Why would you set it that far back? So I just got there with a hammer and belted it back in, because it's not supposed to be like that. But obviously coupes aren't their forte, obviously. They got some idea, but not a full idea. Coupes are a bit of a acquired taste. Okay, lovely. Love it how it fits back on its mould. So that's what I was screwing with. I've still got to tweak it a bit more. I'll zoom out a bit or pull it back. So that's either a squeaking fan belt or that thing is supercharged. It just drove past. Interesting stuff. So yeah, I think that'll work. Might be. There's definitely a piece that comes down here. I'll just have to wing it a little bit, unfortunately. But at least when it goes back together, I think I still need to trim a bit more off through here and up there. But we're aiming for it. And the interesting thing is when you get these in, this actually has to sit lower than that seam, because actually when they lead fill them and bog them up, that's sort of the style line, because you can see this piece and they sort of taper off on a diagonal. So this actually needs to be significantly lower than it. So when that's sitting in there, yeah, it sits lower. Well, it does, but it's hard to show when it's in one hand and holding the phone with the other. And walk this over here. The interesting thing will be trying to sort this mess out. So this is going to effectively be about there. I think I need to straighten that line up a little bit. So you can almost see that corner there. But it's so heavily hammered that it's going to be less than fun to try and make that sit in there. I can't guarantee that I'll end up with it being right when I'm done. Yeah, that was about right, wasn't it? I thought for some reason there was too much hanging off the bottom, but no, it's fairly right. Like that, I reckon. Somewhere there. I don't know. I'm going to cut this off today, I reckon. And probably through here and across, and just try and get all of that off, and then put in my next piece. And I'll have to just start it from there, I reckon, and just sit it on there and try and get all of this. As I cut this, I'm assuming this quarter panel is just going to pop straight back out, and I'll just have to make it all work. Fun for the whole family. So yeah, we've been making progress. I now need to make that. I know I need to make that a bit higher. So yeah, and to anybody who's asking if I was going to make these panels and sell, no, I don't have time. I got more things on my plate than I could poke a stick at. So, and I don't plan on making a left one unless I get around to it. What I should have done is, I made a bit of a mistake. I should have, before I bent this curve into it, I should have cut another one and shaped them exactly the same so they were both mirrors, and then flipped them. But I was in the process of just making one, and that's what happened. So I only have the right side. If you were super desperate for one, I'd probably whittle your one up, but I'm not going to go into production and make them. It's not my thing. I'm a panel beater. I'm running a small business. I don't have time to stop what I'm doing on fixing cars to sit there and make 100 of these things. Plus, I don't think the market's there. I think the number of coupes being restored is actually going to dwindle and disappear, because there was only so many coupes at day one, and they're nearly all restored, and what's left is either completely stuffed or really rusty. I think that's actually the same thing. But I was talking with Better Than You Old Stock, the guy who makes these tail light panel sections, and I said, hey, are you going to make the coupe tail light panels like that? And he said, nope. And apparently I was like the fourth person to ask him that question. Very nice guy. I was going to offer him this to see if he wanted to make a die out of it and make some better ones, but it's not going to happen. The tooling is going to would be excruciatingly expensive, and he'd have to sell them for more money than people are willing to pay. So if you're hoping that these are coming, they're not coming. Not from him anyway. I still would like to find someone who can make them. So hell, if I get desperate enough, I'd probably try and make one myself. But unfortunately, the only ones that you can get are rare spares, and that's all we're going to have for some time until someone makes them. But I did ask the question, and he was quite reasonable in his answer. It makes sense. They cost a shite load of money to tool up, and there just isn't the clientele there to make them viable. Because I don't know the exact coupe numbers, but they didn't make tons of them at day one, and most of them that were left have been restored. So it's just not economically viable to make them. So that sucks, but that's life. So yeah, I'm going to stop rambling and get back into this, and hopefully we can get this section put in the back of the car today. Alrighty, we've made the incision. Whew! I tell you what, in my humble opinion, I reckon encountering someone else's previous repairs is actually more difficult than encountering rust. Because at least rust sort of stays to the original shape, but wow, when you're getting through some old stuff, it's very interesting. Like I was trying to grind off the edge of this quarter panel, and wow, I don't know how much weld to use, but whoa, all of it. So what I'm going to have to do is be very interesting. I have to cut this section out, sort of across there, and then try and get that out while still keeping some of its shape. I didn't go too far up here because I want to sort of place it correctly, as I'm going to have to work off this. It's about all I can work off of. And I took measurements from the other coupe to make sure that when I put the end back on, that between, I took some measurements from here to here to make sure it doesn't stick out too far or is too far in. Just trying to cover all bases, but some interesting stuff going on. But hopefully, when I tap that out, it won't just, it's hard to, it really is hard to show, but it just, it's like someone put a sweeping right angle turn in there. It really is hard to show because it's black now, but it is way wrong. But hopefully by the end of this video we'll have the new end on the quarter panel, and then we can sort of work forward from there. Yeah. Anyway, keep on cracking on. Alrighty, I've skipped a few steps because I've been sort of mainly focused on just actually getting some work done. So it's been fun trying to get this in because the back of the car is so heavily crushed from whatever happened to it that it's been a bit of a nightmare. I've had to tweak my piece a little bit and do some compromises, but I've got that width spot on, the curve as close as I can get it, and the measurement from here to the other side of there, the same as what's on the good coupe. So I know it doesn't stick out any further than it should, and my measurements are all spot on. It's looking pretty good. This is so heavily warped and stretched, this steel. Somebody, I hope the next guy who does this doesn't just bog it up and actually heat shrinks this quarter panel here and actually pulls it in, because I'm going to actually, some of these are sunk back in, so I'm going to cut a couple of these and bring them back up as close as I can. I can't guarantee a perfect weld through here, so I'm welding straight steel to heavily stretched steel, so it may not look the prettiest through there, but at least it'll resemble something that it should have from day dot. And then my next piece will just sit in here, and then I'll remake the bottom of that, and then underside, and then progress on to removing the back panel, that section, and the two corners. But at least that bit will have recovered. Yeah, I could be here for a long time doing all this, but it's coming along. Had to make some compromises, but at least now, once I line it back up, you'll see that this over here actually is a lot straighter and doesn't just dip down. So when I bring the skin back up to a height that it should be, we should be giggling like schoolgirls. So I'm going to keep on rolling. I'll catch up probably when I've finished welding this piece in, and then that's effectively the back end of the quarter panel. I had a couple of people ask, what the hell is that piece? I said, it's the back of the quarter panel, the very back of the quarter panel. So, making good progress. It's fitting quite well. It's just unfortunate we're fitting it to something that's quite heavily bent. So, more, we'll keep on keeping on. Alright, so I've skipped a few steps since you last caught up. I was a bit concerned by this what I was welding to here with the, you can see this quarter panel's been hammered like 1,000 times. It's starting to get really weak. So a couple of times when I was welding through here, the weld would blow a hole and it would work its way down effectively a very weak piece of steel. Now it's a bit ugly through here, but at least when you look at the profile, it looks right, and I've measured the gap so this doesn't stick out any further than it needs to. And if you sit like this, the tail up panel doesn't extrude past that seam. My new piece is in for there. So I've stopped here because I need to make another piece that wraps up and around, sort of, and obviously I need to add a little bit. So I've stopped there, but this is, I chose to weld the seam like I did with the XC Coupe. And that's all in lovely, copper sprayed behind, and eventually they'll just skim that full of filler or lead or something, but at least this line now protrudes higher than this, because that's actually what you see when a Landau's finished. So when they finish up a Landau and put all the lead and stuff, they're actually curved quite nicely through here, and then you see the very edge of that, oops, I'll zoom out, the very edge of that style line there. So you see that profile, and then it curves, just this swoops into that, and then this has a nice hook down. So at least we've recovered it. I'll grind it in a second, and then I'll do a bit of a wrap up. Alrighty chaps, that'll wrap up today's video. It's looking a lot better. Bit of finishing work. I've got to add, like I said before, I've got to add in a little bit through here, weld up a couple of little holes, weld that up, but it's pretty much all ground down. And considering what I started with to what I have now, it's something you can work with. I keep looking at it and thinking, gee, it looks wrong, but every time I had this off, I measured it to the other car, and that's the shape the other one is, so that's the shape it's supposed to be. It just looks off because the quarter panel bulges out so far. Glad I'm not doing the bodywork on that, because it'd be a nightmare to get right. It almost needs to be smacked down through there. It's just too much on, like, sort of this region. There is too much filler, I'm going to assume. Yeah, you could slice a loaf of bread on that. That's way too sharp for a Falcon Coupe. So yeah, that'll wrap up this video quite nicely. It may not be the longest one, but when we come back to this car, we'll be back into normal rip stuff off and put stuff on, sort of fairly easy stuff. But this has been the complicated hand making sections. Actually, it's not perfect, but it's way better than what was there before, and at least it semi looks like it's supposed to. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and don't forget to share it with your friends.